and welcome to the International Desk. I'm Lynda Kinkade. The relationship between the United States and Iran may be entering a new era after an historic weekend. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry spoke to CNN a short time ago and said there's still much to be done, but the U.S. can build trust with the Islamic Republic over time. His comments come after a prisoner swap in which 4 Americans held in Tehran were released in exchange for 7 Iranians held in the U.S. In addition, on Saturday, the International Atomic Energy Agency certified that Iran was complying with a deal to curb its nuclear program. That led to the lifting of some decades-old sanctions that had been crippling their economy.
Yesterday, or 2 days ago now, I guess it is, was as complex a day as I've been through because there were so many moving parts and so much need for simultaneity to build confidence. But Foreign Minister Zarif acted professionally, and when he gave his word, he kept his word. And I think that's important in terms of our relationship going forward.
And you trust him?
Well, you know, we don't build these relationships based on trust at the earliest stages. You remember what Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. President Obama has said, don't trust but verify. So we approach these issues with a view towards building the trust over time. It doesn't happen in 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 years. But we can build trust if we see that this program indeed is adhered to thoroughly, and also if Iran will begin to join with us to bring peace to Syria, deal with Yemen, reduce its activities in other countries. There are a number of things that we need to work at.
And CNN's Plankton joins me now live from Landstuhl Medical Center, which is southwest of Frankfurt in Germany, where the released Americans are being treated. Fred, no doubt a lot of relief. What can you tell us about their condition?
Yeah, certainly a lot of relief, but at the same time, it still appears to be clear that, of course, these 3 men went through a lot of trauma, and of course, they're receiving medical treatment here at the Landstuhl facility, both psychologically as well as physically also. Especially in the case of Jason Rezaian, there was a lot of concern about his state of his health while he was in detention there at Evin prison in Tehran, which is notorious for the tough conditions there. He told the editors of the Washington Post, the newspaper that he works for, that the solitary confinement that he faced there was actually the toughest thing on him while he was in detention. Now, his brother, Ali Rezaian, is here. He's trying to meet up with Jason. He said so far they haven't been able to meet face-to-face because the folks here at the medical center are trying to get this reintegration going very, very slowly so as not to overwhelm these 3 men. But he does say that Jason has spoken to him, and here's what Ali had to say. Let's listen in.
He seems in good spirits. He's, together. He's really can't wait to get out there, see people, meet people. But right now he's got to focus on getting himself better and getting out there. The first thing he asked for was some information. He feels like he's been starved of information for the last 18 months. Having to live off of Iranian state TV and getting your news from there isn't where you want to be as a reporter. And he just wants to see what's going on in the world. I think he was surprised and shocked at the amount of attention that this was getting.
And of course, at this point in time, the main thing for these 3 men, not just Jason Rezaian, but of course also Amir Hekmati and Saeed Abedini, the main thing for them is to go through these medical checks to get better and then to meet up with their loved ones. It's unclear at this point when they'll be able to return from here, from Landstuhl, back to the U.S. But of course, doctors are trying to make that happen as fast as possible, Lynda.
And Fred, just looking at the Iran nuclear deal, because Iran is complying with that deal, most of the sanctions have been lifted, but some fresh sanctions have been imposed on companies and individuals. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah. Well, that's because the sanctions against Iran are really a very complicated web, if you will. Not all of them are necessarily or were necessarily related to Iran's nuclear program. Those certainly were the harshest sanctions against Iran, which have now been lifted. But Iran also faces sanctions by the United Nations for supporting international terrorism, for instance, but also because of its ballistic missile program. And one of the things that happened right after this nuclear agreement was signed between Iran and the P5+1 nations was that the Iranians went out and tested some additional ballistic missiles. And that certainly is something that so shortly after the signing of the nuclear agreement did not go down well at all in the United States. And so therefore, in spite of the fact that you have gains on that on the front of the nuclear agreement being in place, the U.S. has also levied these additional sanctions against Iran as well. The interesting thing was the U.S. didn't announce these sanctions until those 3 Americans had left Iranian airspace. Of course, they didn't want to jeopardize their citizens being released by the fact that they were going to put these sanctions in place. Lynda.
A lot of interesting angles to cover today. Fred Plankton in Landstuhl, Germany, thank you very much.